Hello everybody. Welcome again to my studio. I hope you can all hear me. I'm here with Mike and Michelle as always, and a few American presidents to throw in a bit of company for us. How's the sound, Mike?
Great.
How's the visuals, Michelle?
Looks good.
As good as they can be of me anyway. I'm so happy to see you all. This is really cool. I've become used to these sessions now, and I actually really look forward to them. Now today we love the idea of development and growth in our studio, and we're always pushing ourselves to do new things and to keep experimenting. So now that we've got our own little channel cooking, Mike has been busy sort of adapting our little setup to become, each time we do this, we're going to get a little bit grander and a bit more professional. So we've got some new software that we're trying out today. So hopefully it works. But the exciting thing is that I'm able now, if this works, to share with you visuals and go a little bit deeper into how photography works, how art works, how the creative process works, and how that original inspiration transfers into perhaps a finished product that you might see. So with all that said, I always like to start these Q&As off with a thing called gratitude, which for me is to say thank you to an artist or a creative thinker who has done something before in history that inspired me to open doors in my brain and to interpret the things that they did and bring them into my world, especially when, anyone who's a photographer chiming in today will know that once you get busy and once you get going, all you've really got is your technical knowledge, but much more important, it's your knowledge of creative history and culture, because you can burn out really, really quickly. So avoiding burnout and keep coming up with good ideas depends on your pool of inspiration. So today's gratitude is going to be directed towards someone very, very special in art history. And we're going to get a bit surreal today. There's your clue. Now, Mike, are we able to, what do you call it?
A field trip.
A field trip. So I think I mentioned it last time, Michelle, that we might go on a field trip today up to my library.
Yeah, let's do it.
So upstairs in my office, I've got a very special place. I've got 3 libraries. My office is the main one, and it's got a real collection of, the main collection of a lot of my books, art books, photography books, books about design, and my desk is also up there, so that's where I do all my thinking and my research. And sometimes if I'm in a bad mood, I'll shout down to my team here and say, "Where's this? Where's that?" And they'll be sure to shout back in the same manner, "We don't know yet. We haven't got it." So that's just the way our office goes. Shall we go up? Yeah? All right. We're going to take you on a little field trip. Come with me. So Mike's going to detach the camera and follow me. So it might be a bit wobbly, but this is really, really exciting. Right, ready? Come with me. All right. You good?
Good.
All right. So as you can see, we're passing not everyone we're a fan of, but I like to be reminded of the challenges in the world. So this is my inspiration private area. So I've got Picasso's Guernica here, Daido Moriyama. These are some collages. This is from my World Leaders book cover. The great legendary Scott Daddidge did this giant collage with letterpress letters for me, which is great, and it's so big, so I kept it. It's a work of art. This is the original collage I did for Defenders. So it was actually done with scraps of paper, tape, and the target is a painted target with a bit of silver foil in the middle, and that's how I worked out my ideas. This is one of my dad's drawings, which has really inspired me, and you'll probably see a lot of that in my Greek work, and I will be doing a whole thing on this in the coming future. But this was a series of book covers he did for Nikos Kazantzakis, who wrote Zorba the Greek, one of the greatest writers of the 20th century. And my dad was commissioned to do a series of book covers. So this is my library. This is my desk. On this side, I've got a lot of photography books here, books about fashion over there, and on the top is just a collection of books I've been in, or things I've been featured in, or things I've been involved with, my work's in, and I've kind of run out of space, so I'm starting to shove that everywhere. Over here, this is all design, architecture. This is all Frank Lloyd Wright and Le Corbusier, which is the most special part of my library, I think. A lot of these books were my dad's books, and when he passed away, I acquired his library, so that absorbed into my library, and it just keeps on growing. So this is I've got 3 libraries, one here, one in my private living quarters next door, and then a big library at home, which is really more design, graphic design books. So up here is all architecture. So here is art, and I always love the idea of books having objects around them on the shelves. So you'll see, just to make me feel comfortable, I like to be surrounded by my whole life. So I've even got some of my old toy cars here. This is a Magical Mystery Tour bus from the Beatles. Big Beatles fan, as anyone might know. My son's name is Jude. My dog's name is Sergeant Pepper. So I've got some of my first toys here. There's a Batmobile here I used to play with when I was a kid. But I've also got some really cool things. So this is a handmade knife from Paros, the Greek island, which a farmer gave me. And it's so earthy. I don't know if you can see, Mike, because it's clear. And he carved the handle out of wood, so it's covered in scratches. And this he used it on the farm. And this is about 150 years old. He was very old when he gave this to me, and he's died a long, long time ago. These masks down here are Pussy Riot's masks from our shoot, and I'm going to talk about that picture soon. But these are the actual masks they made on set when they were with me, and they gave them to me at the end of the shoot. So that's one of I love that. Okay, so let's get to books. So today, as I mentioned, we're getting a bit surreal. So if you're talking about surrealism, first base, Magritte. So I am going to pull this book and this book. And the cover of this book is really important, the eye. 2 reasons. The eye is really important in my work. But it's also got the sky in it, and I've always, because of this picture, I've always been fascinated by puffy clouds and skies, and I'll show you how both these ideas infiltrate my work. Now, there's another book I wanted to dig out. Where is it? What did I do with it? And that is, I can't seem to find it now. What did I do? Here it is. Fashion and Surrealism. This was from an exhibition that I saw when I was about 19 years old in London. I think it was in the Victoria and Albert Museum. And it blew my mind because it was the relationship between fashion designers, fashion illustrators, fashion photographers, hair and makeup artists, and the history of surrealism. So that really inspired my work and led me directly into Magritte, and then a whole world opened up. So shall we take these down, Mike, and then
Sure.
we'll test out your new software program. See if Mike really is as great as he says he is. All right. All right, there he is, always watching us. Just to tip the balance of history, I've got Muhammad Ali here, the last picture I took of him on the day, and I love this picture. This was in the New Yorker magazine, and the ring he has here is the ring that Malcolm X gave him, and Ali wore this ring, I believe, till the day he died. So this is a very, very special picture, a reflection on life's adventures, victories and failures, and a moment to be humble. And obviously you know who this is, so I like to be surrounded by past experiences, legends, some good, some not so good. All right, how's the steady hand there, is it good?
Feeling good.
And just to be great expectations in my coffee cup, because that's the motto of our studio. Okay, so shall we start with the first image, Mike, from Magritte? Here we go, yeah. So this image is really important. There's a rumour, I was told this by one of Magritte's main collectors, a beautiful old guy called George Melly, who was an English institution. He was a sort of raconteur, a jazz singer, sort of a cultural icon in England. He's passed away now a long time ago, but a really cool guy. And I went to his house once and I took his picture. We should have dug it out, but save that for another time. And he told me all about Magritte because he loved Magritte. So I spent a lot of time with George and I learnt a lot about Magritte. He told me that allegedly when Magritte was 14 years old, I believe his mum committed suicide. And the rumours are that she threw herself into a lake or a river and drowned. And when he was 14, he saw them pulling her body out of the water. And she was wearing a sort of white dress that was very thin fabric. And as she was being pulled out of the water, part of the dress went over her face. And because it was wet, it stuck to her face. And although Magritte seemed to deny this, a lot of people say that he saw this and was traumatized by it. And that image of the face being covered by a kind of veil became something that became like a theme in his work. So this painting is called The Lovers, I believe. And it's a beautiful picture. It's like an embrace. But it also reflects back to Magritte's, perhaps his traumatic experience with his mum. Now, the idea of surrealism that I was drawn to is you take something away and create a mystery. And often that's taking two things that are unrelated and putting them together to create some kind of conflict. And as human beings, we like that. It creates a puzzle that doesn't make sense. It gives us room to play with it in our own mind instead of just explaining everything 100%. So this picture creates that kind of strange, unresolved conflict. They're kissing and yet they're covered up. Does that mean they're strangers in life? And sometimes you can have a romantic episode with a stranger, or you think it's someone you know, but actually it turns out you don't really know them. So this idea of mystery became very important to me. And as we've just been upstairs and Mike showed you the Pussy Riot masks, Mike, do you want to go to the next picture? Here's the actual picture I took of Pussy Riot. And obviously very different circumstance. But when you are, in the moment with someone like some people like Pussy Riot, and you're grabbing ideas out of thin air and you're all trying to make something together, I remembered this idea of Magritte's painting. The mystery. Of course, Pussy Riot's masks do create a mystery, and that's why I always loved their aesthetic. But this picture was kind of a sort of reference of a tribute to Magritte. If you go to the next picture, there are different ways of interpreting a mystery, and I got an amazing opportunity to photograph this man, who's a legend. I wonder if you can tell who it is. He's perhaps the world's most famous film director at the moment. And you would think I would show his face and do a normal portrait, but the idea of Magritte's mystery always stays in the back of my mind. So I thought, well, in this case, I want to leave you guessing. I wonder if anyone wants to type in and see who this is, unless they've already said it, Michelle.
Well, we're actually having technical difficulties with the chat.
Oh, so the chat's not working.
No.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, the chat's not working, so maybe it will start to work later. But everyone can hear me okay?
Yes.
And that's all else stuff's working? Okay. Sorry, folks, about that. World of technology. In that case, I'm going to leave this one a mystery.
Cool.
And maybe you do a bit of homework, folks, and look in my archive and see if you'll find it, or see if you can guess. Go to the next one, Mike. Right, another mystery, but everyone seems to guess who this one is. And normally it's the ladies that jump in first with the guess, sometimes the men too. So I might as well give the game away on this one. This is David Beckham, the Great. But again, the idea of mystery. He's so famous, his face is so famous, he's so handsome. Why not turn around and create a bit of mystery? But also, by turning him around, you start to see other things about him. You start to see his tattoos and what they mean to him, and the names of his kids at the time were being tattooed onto his body. Now he's got even many more tattoos than he had at this point in his life. His kids were very young when I did this. They were tiny. Now they're taller than me. All right, so now we go to this next one, Mike, which is the cover of this book. The eye. So in Greek mythology, the eye is really important. The Greeks also have, if any of you have been to Greece, you see in all the tourist shops the little evil eyes you can buy on a kind of necklace to keep the dark spirits away. So again, something I grew up with as a kid, so I was always receptive to the eye. But when I saw this amazing painting, it really got me. So when I started working in Greece and bringing my photo studio to the islands, to Paros, if you go to the next slide, Mike, you'll be able to see exactly how this is replicated in my work. And this is, they call it a tama. It's actually a little silver plated, it's a little silver eye. And if you go to a church in Greece, you'll see that local people, if they have something that's wrong with them, they will make one of these little, what would you call it? Like in our culture, it's like it's got a little hook on it. It's like a charm, right? That's the nearest thing I can describe. And they will bring it to church and they will pin it to a piece of string underneath the icon that they are named after, because each icon is a different saint. So if someone's got a farmer has got a problem with their arm, maybe they broke their arm in the field, they would make one of these little charms of an arm and tie it in a ribbon to the string underneath their icon and say a prayer and hope that their arm gets better. Because if it doesn't, they can't farm. And then it sends off a different set of problems. Sometimes you see someone's face, like a wife or a husband or a baby. And these charms tend to stay underneath the icons. for years and years, and they build up. So you get to see a strange, beautiful, sometimes sad history of a village, of all the prayers that people said, wishing well for their family. Sometimes it's the house. So in this case, someone must have been losing their eyesight, and but for me, it also represents, the evil eye keeping away spirits, but also the eye of the photographer or the artist. So go to the next one, and you'll see how this then translates even further. We did a big project a few years ago, during COVID actually, where we couldn't shoot anyone, couldn't take any more pictures. So we decided to go back into my archive using our NASA scanner, and we upped the scale and zoomed right into eyes that I had from all my big sessions over 35 years, and separated the eye out. And what I actually did was, as I'm talking to one of my subjects and I'm taking a few pictures, sometimes the eye is very responsive, and if you say something that makes someone happy or inspired, the iris kind of opens. If you say something that pisses them off, everything gets a bit tense, and I see it in their eye. So we scanned in different moments from my conversations with my subjects and created eyes that actually move, little moving images of the eye responding, and that's so weird and cool, and it really lets you into someone's soul, and yet it maintains Magritte's mystery. In this case, this is Putin's eye, always watching us. Okay, let's go to the next one. Right? So I love this picture. Again, it's very strange, doesn't really make sense. The man is a cage. You can read into it however you want, but the idea of unexplained, unresolved story is really interesting. But of course, then as an artist, there's just a visual aesthetic that we like to steal. Picasso always said, if there's something to steal it, I will steal it. And that's not a negative thing. That's actually what he means, I believe, is inspiration. If there's inspiration I'll see in something, I'll take it. I need it for my work. So then if you go to the next picture, you'll see how structurally I took the same idea for a president. And no one would think that a Magritte painting might become the basis for a moment you have with the president. But this, I don't go with a drawing, or some people go to photo shoots with bits of paper and references and try to copy it. That's not how I work. I study books. I get really inspired by ideas, and they just go deep into your spirit. And then randomly, when you're in the dark groping for an idea and you feel like you're slipping, this weird image bank appears, and out of the chaos comes, sometimes I'm not even aware of it, but the shape was in my head, so it's automatic. And that's how this shape happened. Go to the next one. This is very different, this one. I love this picture. It's the idea of night and day at the same time. So if you look at it, sky is daytime, but the street underneath it, there's a nighttime street lamp, and it's nighttime, and yet he puts them together. He's saying something, I think, about the human condition. There's good and bad to our spirit, to our morality, and we're somewhere in the middle trying to work out whether it's daytime or nighttime spiritually, maybe. But then we go to the next one, Mike. Okay, well, this is an ad campaign I did for my friends at Montclair. I love this brand, and Remo, the boss of Montclair, is an absolute visionary. So they came to me a few years ago, and it was one of the biggest jobs I've ever done, to be honest. And we're working on a new project with them, which is going to blow everyone out of the stratosphere. We shot it this week, actually, didn't we? I'm not going to talk about it, but it's the biggest thing I've ever done. But this is a campaign we did a couple of years ago, and they did a collaboration with all these different fashion designers for their jackets. And this particular jacket had LED lights in it, so it kind of lights up. So this is a lovely lady called Elsa
Hosk.
Elsa Hosk. Yeah, I can't remember her surname. Hosk. She was so nice, and we got on really well. And she's really beautiful. Has this elegance. She's like an angel. And as she wore the jacket, how do you light her? If you light her beautifully, then you can't see the lights in the jacket. And it reminded me exactly of the Magritte picture, where you have daytime and nighttime happening at the same time. So we spent quite a while trying to work out a technical, for all you photography geeks out there, to light her in the most beautiful way, but also bring the lights down enough to show that the jacket actually glows in the dark. Was a technical, really complicated thing to do. So if you go to the next picture, you'll see she's now glowing in the dark, which I love this picture. So of course there's a technical side to this, but the most important thing is actually her, because that's what makes it really moving, and the look in her face. She'd recently had a baby, and so she talked to me. We weren't talking about fashion and money and success and materialism. We were talking about how she's watching her baby discover new things every second. You know, she was talking about blowing bubbles from one of those little bubble things into the air, and her baby was looking at the bubbles going past, you know, the baby's face. And she said, that is extraordinary moment. So that beautiful spirit of discovery was in her face in this picture. And you combine that to nighttime and daytime, inspiration from Magritte, and you get this picture. And this was used as one of the main ads in the campaign for Montclair. Let's go to the next one. All right, this is a very famous picture. It's sort of very formalized. You've got sort of a businessman, you know, bowler hat, in a suit, and then there's this random strange object covering his face. In this case, it's just like a floating apple, and leaves you feeling, oh, well, what's that about? That doesn't make sense, but there's something amazing about it. So if you go to the next picture, I'll show you another ad campaign I did a long, long time ago. This was for Moschino. And Moschino, the designer, had tragically passed away. And at that point in the early 90s, I think, they came to me and asked me to not just take pictures for them, but to art direct ideas for them, because Moschino loved surrealism, and it was sort of one of the main anchors of his whole spirit. And if you look at Moschino clothes, particularly in the 1980s at his peak, you can see surrealism infiltrating his ideas. So it was a match made in heaven, and it was a great honor for me to temporarily step into those shoes and come up with surrealist ideas using their clothes. So I went back to this idea of this object floating in front of someone's face and creating mystery. And I wanted to have someone's head shaved, so it's the back of their head, but to leave the shape of a heart, which is one of the emblems that Moschino always used. But no model would do it, because of course they'll be out of a job till their hair grows back. So I had to persuade one of the clients to do it. So I remember someone, I can't remember the guy's name, but he was a really sweet guy and he was very brave. I said, all right, I've got this idea. I need a head, and I need a head to be shaved bald except for a heart. Will you do it? And he said, oh, all right, I'll do it. So all the clients gathered round, and the hairdresser, I can't remember who the hairdresser was, but it was one of the greats, actually shaved the head. And so the picture became an event. And talk about investment from a client's point of view. They actually invested a lot into this picture. And I love this picture. And so that's how that came about. Okay, go to the next one. I love this. Sort of a very dainty lady, sort of beautifully dressed with a hat. It almost looks like she's going to Ascot. But then there's this thing in front of her face that creates a strange mystery. Now, fashion has always, as I said earlier, turned to surrealism for inspiration. And a few years ago, I had the great honour to be invited to work on an amazing project with the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The Met Gala that they do each year is based on a theme with the costume institute there, and it's a celebration of a different fashion concept each year for their museum shows. So this year, that year they had this idea to honor China's influence around the world in terms of fashion design and Chinese culture, modern and ancient. So we worked on the project for about a year. I spent about 6 months in the vaults at the Met. We built a photo studio there and photographed all their collection of incredible clothes from Alexander McQueen, Issey Miyake, Christian Dior. It went on and on for ages. And then, have you got the book there, Michelle? Yeah, we made a beautiful catalogue out of it. And this is the catalogue here. And if you can see, all the pictures are in there. The show to accompany this, the exhibition to accompany this, was extraordinary, and we worked with Wong Kar-wai to put it together. So one of the shoots was to go to Paris, and I spent a few days in Yves Saint Laurent's fashion house, and I was invited into their archives to photograph his famous opium collection. So Mike, if you go to the next picture, you'll see what I did of the opium, one of the pieces from the opium collection. And I tipped the hat forward to create a sense of mystery, and it was again a reference to Magritte's mystery covering the face. And if you go to the next one, I'm jumping about a lot. This is a picture I did for my Royal College of Art graduation show. I was at college with Philip Tracy, the legendary milliner, hat designer. And Philip used to kindly lend me a lot of his college hats that he was making at the time. Alexander McQueen was also at college at the same time as me when I was at St Martin's. So he used to also lend me all his clothes. Same with Hussein Shalayam and Vivienne Westwood, who was a legend to us at that time. She also used to lend me her clothes to practice on, to take fashion pictures. So all these people were around me doing really interesting things. So when it came to my final year show, Philip gave me a series of his hats, and I invited a model that we knew at the time to come to the Royal College of Art studios, and I shot it in daylight. And this is again inspired by Magritte. The hat is almost like a motorcycle helmet made of sort of thistles and spikes. And I wanted the naked skin to sort of contrast with the sort of texture of the hat. I shot it in daylight, so there's no lighting on this, and the hat was pure white. And I figured out that how do you show contrast between the skin and the hat? The girl had white skin, she was very light skin color, but because I exposed for the pure white of the hat, naturally her skin becomes darker, and I upped the contrast to maximum grade 5 in the darkroom when I printed this. So if you're really pushing contrast to its absolute max, then the difference between the white of the hat and even a bit of skin color on her skin becomes massive, and she almost becomes inky on her skin. So that's how that picture was created, but that really is from Magritte. Okay, next one. So again, this is a very interesting picture. There's a woman, and there's a nude, but parts of her skin almost reveal, it looks like wood grain. And again, very surreal, doesn't really make sense, don't know what this is about. But that idea stuck in my mind. And when I was going back to my Moschino days, when we were doing that a whole series of campaigns for them, when they presented me, I would go to Milan and I would be invited to attend the fashion show, and I would sit there and I would look at all the pieces, and then I would get to be able to say, right, I like number 5, number 6, I think number 8 will be really cool in a picture. And then we'd have a big meeting with all the team there, and I would say I'd love to do something with these 10 pieces from the show, and if they agreed, then I would go away, develop ideas, come back, present them with ideas in Milan, and if they liked those ideas, then we would begin production and shoot it. So one of the pieces in one of their couture collections was of a dress with a very stretched thin fabric that goes right over the body, and the dress had a sort of wood grain print on it. So when the model put it on, it almost looked like there was wood stretched around her body. Of course, I instantly remembered this picture. So can you show the next picture, Mike? Here is the picture. And obviously I love the shape. She was one of my favorite models. We became great friends and we worked together a lot. Perhaps not a conventional shape for a fashion picture, but again, a tribute to Magritte, but I remember in those days there were no computers, so I wanted to bring out the grain of the wood even more. So when I printed this, I then took a razor blade and scratched the highlights of the wood grain out even more and scratched the surface off the photograph itself to create these really sharp white lines. And that's what makes this look like, actually, is it really wood, or is it just fabric? So Mike, if you go to the next one, we're going even earlier, and this is one of the first pictures I ever took in the studio at the Royal College. Students in the fashion department were starting to develop fabrics and prints and different structures to fabric. And before they were even garments and dresses and finished, I would go in and I would say, can I have something unfinished so I can just experiment with shapes? So one of the designers had this sort of, it was like a tube of netting that I thought was really interesting. It looked like a fishing net. So I said, can I borrow that? And the deal was I would give them pictures. So they kindly lent me all their stuff, and I took it back to the studio. I would invite a young model in who wanted pictures for her portfolio. And I put the thing around her and got her to stretch in it. And it reminded me, obviously it's not the texture of wood, but this idea of a new texture blending over skin. And it sort of accentuates the form of the body with the grid of the fabric. So, okay, next picture. Hopefully this is interesting for you folks. All right, here's an interesting one. What do we see here? We see a sort of looking through a window. The glass of the window has been shattered, and as it falls to the ground, the view beyond the glass seems to be stuck on the glass that falls down. So again, it raises some really interesting questions, and it does something that leaves you feeling a little confused. So the next picture I'm going to show you is not a direct visual reference to this, but this idea of confusion. Let's go to the next picture, Mike. So we're staying with fashion because it's a big part of what I've done in my life. Eventually, I got the great honour to photograph a few campaigns for Issey Miyake. Now, obviously, Issey Miyake was one of the greatest fashion designers of his time, and I loved Issey Miyake. I was a devotee to his philosophy and his aesthetic. I even used to go and hang out in his shop in London just to be around the environment. And all the shopkeepers, the assistants in the shop, must have thought I was a right weirdo, because I was there for hours each day, just sitting there, looking through the racks of clothes, looking at the style of the showroom. It was all done with concrete, very sort of brutalist, all based on design philosophy. And eventually I got to know everyone in the shop, and you know, they would sometimes make me a cup of tea or coffee while I'm waiting there, and I'd be doing drawings. I was a student. Eventually the dedication must have reached the message that there's this weird photographer hanging out in our shop. So it got to the top, to Issey himself. And when the menswear side of his company wanted to do a campaign, I ended up getting the campaign. Obviously, Irving Penn was very famous for doing work with Issey for many years, so it was a target of mine. So this was something that I did for, I think it was Arena en Plus, and it may have been my first big fashion story in a magazine. I persuaded, or we worked it out with, I think it was David Bradshaw, who I worked with for the first time in 30 years 2 days ago. He used to be fashion director of Arena, and an amazing guy, legendary stylist, menswear stylist. Anyway, he came to me and he said, we're interested in doing a fashion campaign, having looked at your work that you did at the Royal College of Art. That picture I described about Daylight and Philip Tracy, they really liked those pictures. So he said, we're thinking of doing it all on one designer. So he said, is there a designer that you like? And I said, Issey Miyake. So they said, okay, well, that's kind of interesting. So we did the whole fashion story on Issey's clothes, menswear clothes. And each garment has a really special quality. So in this picture, the model becomes a mystery again. Okay, so it's another Magritte idea, but the hat was perforated. And I always wanted to try to tell the story of the garment. You have to kind of describe, it's not just about style, street style, but it's actually how do you show what this garment does. And so what I did here, it had holes in it, and I thought, well, I want to show that air can travel through it. And then I thought, wouldn't it be interesting, what can travel through it? Well, water, maybe, but then it would ruin the hat. Maybe smoke. So that's interesting. So I persuaded this model to do this. We gaffer taped an ashtray to his head underneath the hat. And then we tried cigarettes, broke them up, lit the nicotine, and put the hat over. It didn't really work. So then I thought, well, let's try a cigar. Maybe that will work. So we went to the shop, bought the cigar, did the same thing with the cigar. That didn't really work. So we were all sitting around. Now I think it was either this model or someone on set was smoking weed in the corner. I never do that when I'm laser sharp, but I remember seeing, it has a particular type of smoke, and it caught the light in the window, and I thought, that's the perfect type of smoke. So I had to persuade whoever it was to give up all their weed that they had that day, and let's try the experiment with the weed. So we reset up the whole thing, new ashtray, gaffer tape on the model's head. Whoever's weed it was traumatized that, that week's stash is going up in smoke, literally. We had one shot at it, put it on, set it on fire, put the hat on, and I got the shot. And before it, pulled the hat off before it actually caught fire, and the model started panicking. So this became like one of my favorite pictures because it's very Magritte. It sort of leaves you thinking, smoking hat, is it the brain that's on fire? All these ideas come into your brain, but there was such a funny story making it. All right, next. So now we're going back to Moschino campaign I did with Eve, one of my favorite models I ever worked with. She was a legendary model, particularly in the 80s, early 90s. She was also an actress and such a cool person. So I remember seeing this outfit on the catwalk, and I went back to the designers at Moschino and I said, it would be really cool if we could get sunglasses that mirror the jacket. And the jacket was made from all these letters and words, so pure black and white. And so they gave me a set of glasses, and either I did it with something called Letraset. I don't think you have it anymore, but it was like adhesive letters, and you can get it in black or white. And I actually stuck letters over the glasses that mirrored the clothes, and it created this really powerful look. And Eve had this sort of she looks like a statue anyway. She's just extraordinary looking, so she carried it. And the fact that her head was shaved, she just looks so badass in this picture. And again, raw daylight in those days. I used to just shoot daylight, and there's something really tough about it, which I think looks really cool. Okay, next picture. Again, this was Christian Dior couture. I shot this in Paris, and the dress was really long. It had this really long drape effect, and a lot of surrealism takes even scale and plays with it. So I thought, well, instead of having it drape along the floor, if we raise the girl on a plinth and keep raising her higher and higher, let the dress come down, and it will just play with this idea of scale. So this was a very successful picture of mine at the time, and I still love it. Just such a simple shape, and it's kind of timeless because it could have been shot in the 1940s by, Blumenfeld or Penn or any of those guys who I loved, or Horst. Actually, this is very Horst kind of picture. Okay, we're moving forward. How am I doing on timing? Interesting.
It's been on for about 50 minutes.
Okay, so we're getting to the end of our day, folks. Then this picture is interesting. Might go to this. Yes. So this random, just look at the composition. The sky, puffy clouds again, hovering over the sea, and sort of this floating rock. So now we're going very far away from fashion, and we're going into human rights work I've done. I spent a lot of time in Russia photographing all the defenders of human rights and activists who have now been either exiled, some have lost their lives, and some are in prison. At the time, there was a museum dedicated to human rights in Moscow called the Sakharov Center. Andrei Sakharov is the godfather of human rights. and I went to the museum to photograph the director of the museum and to photograph a lot of the artifacts. Museum is now shut down by the Russian government. Outside the museum, there was this. Do you want to go to the next picture? There was the only piece of the Berlin Wall that existed in Moscow. And it was an emblem of kind of hope and optimism for many people in Moscow, that this symbolized the fall of the Soviet Union and a hope that things will become more open in their society. Strangely enough, in the middle of this piece of the Berlin Wall, there was a hole cut into it, which kind of even further symbolized, a chance to look through a wall and see freedom through it. I photographed this piece of the Berlin Wall. It was outside the Sakharov Center on a small lawn, and it became like a piece of sculpture that inspired Muscovites. And as I was taking the picture, if you flip back to the picture before, Mike, if you can, you'll see it's the same composition but reversed. Here, the hole is stone, and if you go back to mine, the shape in the middle is openness and sky. But I remember composition of Magritte, and it was sort of Magritte's picture in reverse. This piece of the Berlin Wall has now been removed from that piece of grass and has totally disappeared. I think some people in Russia don't want to be reminded of this idea of hope. Okay, let's go to the last tribute of our day. The clouds again, and an open door, a door that to me represents freedom and goodwill to people, and a chance to break through the confines that we all live with and to hopefully have a better life. Then if you go to the last picture of the day, it's one of my favorite pictures I ever took. We call it Dancing Women. And these women, it's a multi-generational sisterhood of women I photographed in the Democratic Republic of Congo. These women, their ages range from, I think, a girl who was 13 in the front to a lady who was in her 80s. And they all have something in common. They're all survivors of sexual violence. But they decided to rise above adversity and come together and dedicate their lives to cheering up other women and children who have become survivors of this awful phenomenon called rape as a weapon of warfare in that part of the country. So they sing and dance for victims of sexual abuse, and they've become extraordinary advocates. So one day we were filming and shooting in the hospital where they heal all these women, these ladies were getting ready to do their lunchtime performance in the hospital courtyard, and they were practicing singing and dancing, and we heard them outside, and it was amazing. And it was too many of them to fit into this small studio space where I was working, so I had to suddenly grab my team, break down all our equipment. We rushed down into the courtyard. We rigged up all our spare lights and set up a set of lights all behind me like a line. And I had these amazing women do their performance in front of me, and I was able to capture it on film. And it's a moment of joy, optimism, resilience, strength, a refusal to bow to the dark side of life and to think about others, even though these ladies have really been hurt themselves. And of course, what's in the background? Those beautiful puffy clouds that I remembered from the picture of Magritte's open door. And it reminded me that above this incredible moment, there's optimism in the sky and a beautiful day. So it's a picture of optimism, and we even have it in my studio on the wall amongst all these other pictures to remind us that how lucky we are and to keep our spirits high when even we get down sometimes. And we're reminded of how inspirational these women are, that they've been through much worse than we'll ever go through, and yet they're just filled with joy. So that is the end of today's little presentation. I hope it was interesting. Are there any questions you want to do, Michelle?
Well, we don't have too much time for questions, but there was one that I thought was kind of fitting following, everything we've talked about today. So we kind of went through, Magritte's most iconic pieces. And one of your fans had previously asked, is there an image or images that you feel kind of marked your career and will become your legendary iconic pieces?
Well, some of them I've shown today, actually, so that's a good question. I have to admit, I forgot how big Magritte was to me. I'm going to be doing more of this with you all if this is interesting to you all, because please let us know if it is or if it isn't. But it's one of the things that is not often talked about in photography. We all talk a lot. I don't, but most photographers do, about the technical side, and I know everyone wants to know all that stuff. And as time goes on, we will dive more into that. But you can see how I'm talking today, that actually what makes a picture is the other stuff as well, and the inspiration. So when I was sort of preparing today, and I was thinking, right, which artist out of my library upstairs could I refer? And I just saw Magritte, and I thought, well, those books are good. And then I started digging around, and I started to realize, my God, I remembered all these moments where these things sort of permeate my work process. I mean, the picture of Clinton was probably, he was my first president. So some people wish he was my last president on Capitol Hill. But it was the first moment I started to say to myself, okay, we need to be a bit more rock and roll about how we deal with our leaders. And we need to go further and find out what they're like as people. And that particular picture became, that was on the news for like 3 weeks when that came out, because fans of Bill Clinton said, he's a rock and roll president. We love this picture. It's about his charisma. But people who didn't like Clinton read it completely different, that it's a picture. They called it the crotch shot. They talked about that it's all about sex, that his hands are big to grab someone. His legs are sort of spread apart. The face is smiling to say, I got away with it. And the tie is even an arrow. I remember I was on the news for all the wrong reasons for a week. But that was the first moment where I realized an artist sees the world differently. And you have a moment where, are you going to be a technician for other people's ideas, or are you going to be an artist? And an artist stays true to their feelings and stands strong against popular opinion. An artist's job is to hold up a mirror and reflect the times. And that picture, I think, was one of the first times on a really big scale. And America is like the authority in the world, the power system in the world. And if you mess with the head of that system, the president, then you are really talking to power. You're speaking truth to power. And that's what I've always tried to do since then. So I'd say that's one of them.
Yeah.
Putin would be another one, for many different reasons. And maybe another time we'll dig deeper into Putin.
Cool.
What do you think?
Yeah, that's great.
You had a...
Yeah, I think before signing off, I think, what we like to give your viewers is just a little bit of insight into what's coming next. So can you give us a clue as to what video we may see?
We have a secret little clue. Our next film we're going to drop, Platon's Dialogue, And thank you for your kind comments on all those, because people seem to be really liking these little films we're making. So happy to share them with you. The next one is really, really good. It's our most recent one. We've literally just finished it. And I decided to push it forward and throw it in out to you first, instead of being in the queue, because it's so good. It's of an actor who's very, very famous, lovely, lovely human being, and came to our studio and we had the best time. He's quite elderly and such a gentle soul and a brilliant mind. So anyway, we had an amazing time together. I love the film. I'm really excited to share it with you. What, in a couple of weeks now?
Yeah, August 1st.
August 1st. Okay. In the meantime, in tribute to Magritte, to tie it all up, mystery is the key. So I'm not going to tell you who it is, but I am going to give you a little clue. Michelle, can you pass me the clue? Here it is. Now, I don't know if you can tell what this is, but all you Harry Potter fans will probably know what this is. And this will give you a clue as to who it is.
Yeah.
Just to give you a clue as to why the hell I have this in my studio, behind me, over there, where Mike sits, is our retouching station. And when I'm sitting with Mike and we're laying things out, I'm too old to keep standing up and pointing to the screen and say, this is where I want this tiny little bit. So I need a pointing stick. So I used to have a bit of cardboard with loads of gaffer tape taped around it, and it kept collapsing and it was really floppy, and I kept trying to point to the screen and it wasn't accurate enough. Anyway, Corey, who is one of our closest collaborators, who used to be in Mike's position many years ago, he's now our DP and editor for all our films. In those days, his wife popped in. She's a model. She's a lovely person, beautiful as a spirit and beautiful as a human being. She came by and saw that I had this ridiculous pointing stick. So they had recently gone to must have been Universal Studios. Is that what it was? Yeah, and they saw the Harry Potter thing, and so she bought me this wand as a pointing stick. And I've never seen Harry Potter myself, I have to confess. Michelle was horrified that I had not. So I just thought, oh cool, it's a pointing stick, thank you very much. So now we use this to point to all the bits that I want Mike to work on. Now when our famous mystery guest came to the shoot, he saw this and he freaked out. And when you see the film very, very soon, you will understand why he was so excited to see this. So with that said, I think we're coming to the end, Michelle and Mike. Thank you, Mike, for setting up all this technological wizardry. And thank you, Michelle, for all your help as well, preparing today's presentation. I hope you liked it. I didn't take many questions, probably because we had some tech issues, but actually it was really nice for me to just spend some time going back over influences, and I hope that sort of stimulates your own minds. I'm certainly not asking you all to go and look at Magritte and do what I did. I'm really sharing with you the magical process of being inspired by other artists and encouraging you all to go as broad as you can to find inspiration for your work. And when that's matched with technical ability as well, then it starts to really become interesting and reflect society in a sort of challenging, inspiring way. So thank you all for tuning in. Please send us your comments if you like today.
In the questions, in the comments, please leave some questions. For next time, let us know what you thought of this session with this lovely art history lesson. Let us know if this is interesting to you, and we'll continue to do this moving forward.
And in time, in the next few months, we'll be revealing the big job we just did this week.
Yeah.
It was the biggest thing we've ever done in our lives.
Major
Absolutely
ad campaign, yeah.
epic. It's going to blast you all out the stratosphere.
Talk about legends.
It's talk about legends. It will never get better than that. So we're all on a high. We're all exhausted and dazed and confused, but still buzzing, man, from what we were involved with this week.
Absolutely.
Can't wait to share that with you, but I'm not going to jinx it till it's done. Thank you all for tuning in. Love to you all. And for anyone who's ever feeling a bit down, cheer up. Think of those beautiful puffy clouds.